It turns out Bosa knew best. Kyle Shanahan, after the 16-15 win over the Cardinals at Levi's Stadium, was optimistic about Nick Bosa's knee, but Nick Bosa knew as he was walking off the field, as you saw, and he was right. So in 2020, Nick Bosa tore the ACL in his left knee, and they finished 6-10. Yesterday, he tears the ACL in his right knee, and Nick Bosa is out for the season. All right, take a moment. Now let's move on. The 49ers are 3-0. There's nothing you can do to replace Nick Bosa. Internal options, Bryce Huff. He's looked good the first few weeks of the season, but he's not an edge setter. Sam Okunwanu, he may be the starter, and then Huff comes in more on passing downs, but it might be Okunwanu. Robert Beal has shown absolutely nothing so far. So what do? November 4th is the NFL trade deadline. If you're going to trade before then, you're going to be completely ripped off. None of the leverage is yours. So what you do in this situation is first, you see what the internal options can do. None of them are going to be Nick Bosa. However, if the defense continues to perform at a high level, then you don't have to panic. But long term, you can still win this division. You're 3-0 after all. You can still win this division potentially without Nick Bosa because the defensive line has played that well. But long term, if you're going to compete with Philly and Detroit, and I know Green Bay lost yesterday, but Green Bay, the top of the NFC, you're going to have to get somebody. And the number one name that comes out is Trey Hendrickson, and it makes a ton of sense. His cap number this year is $25 million. The 49ers have about $25 million in cap space. But before you go, well, then that's a perfect match. Well, you need some extra cap space throughout a season, so it's not exactly the match that you think it is, but with some financial gymnastics, the 49ers could absolutely make it work. Plus, Trey Hendrickson in the last year of his deal, that's been well documented. Trey Hendrickson was going back and forth with the Bengals. They signed a one-year deal. He's going to be free next season. And with Joe Burrow's injury, the Bengals season is, for all intents and purposes, over. They don't need Trey Hendrickson. They're only on for 1 year. Trey Hendrickson is a free agent at the end of the year. The 49ers could pay the freight, and he's the only thing out there potentially that's close to Nick Bosa. Is it going to get done today, tomorrow, the next day? No, but as we inch closer to November 4th, which is 7 weeks away, they do this in every sport. Internal options, let's see what we got, and then they go outside. The Niners are eventually going to have to go outside of the organization, but it'll be at least a few weeks if they want to overpay, and closer to the deadline if they can limp their way there. Here's the positive. I know there's no silver lining in losing Nick Bosa, but they got Jacksonville coming up this weekend at home. They can win that with or without Nick Bosa. But then it's Thursday at the Rams. Can you beat them without Nick Bosa in L.A.? Maybe. And then you go to Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield, you go across the country. Can you beat them without Nick Bosa? Maybe, maybe not. But if they continue to stack these wins, they get more and more leverage against the Cincinnati Bengals. Other guys that are out there that I like, Will McDonald's a guy that had 10.5 sacks last year for the Jets, played for Robert Saleh, reasonable contract. The Jets are 0-3. I like him. I don't know if the Jets would trade him, but they're going nowhere and could use draft picks. 𝐬𝐿 Thibodeau makes a ton of sense with the Giants, another 0-3 football team. They've already got Brian Burns. They already have first-round pick out of Penn State, Abdul Carter. You'd probably have to give up a first-round pick for 𝐬𝐿 Thibodeau. He's a guy who's had double-digit sacks in this league. He's not Nick Bosa. Again, the only guy close is Trey Hendrickson, but the Bengals would want to rob you blind. So bottom line to the whole thing is you do not replace a Nick Bosa. There are some names out there. They'll go internal first, and then they'll check to see what's out on the market and see what they have to give up. For any of the big names, though, it's probably a first. Maybe, just maybe, Cincinnati would say, hey, I like your backup quarterback, Mac Jones. He's a lot better than our guy, Browning, who throws interception after interception. Maybe Mac Jones and a 2 and another conditional pick, something like that, a better backup situation. But then that leaves the 49ers raw against an injury again to Brock Purdy because they have literally no one behind him. Adrian Martinez or whatever the case may be, bring back Mordecai or any of these guys. There's really nobody out there as a backup quarterback. So I know a lot of people would love to throw Mac Jones into a deal and maybe a 2 or a conditional or something like that for a guy like that. But are you sure you want to give up Mac Jones? I mean, I'm not saying that he's the second coming, this, that, or the other, but he's a really good backup quarterback, and Brock has already been hurt once this season. Anyway, we're talking Nick Bosa. Give me your thoughts. hit the comments right underneath here and make sure you're listening to John Lund Unleashed. Nick Bosa out for the season, torn ACL. What would you do?